Marvel, a company that's released tons of TV shows, hundreds of movies, and thousands of comics. But sometimes when you're either watching the movies or reading the comics, you might have thought, wow, this is interesting. What am I looking at? So today, my friends, I will tell you what Marvel really is. Not just talking about characters, but also what you can do to further understand them. So buckle up, my friends, because I am about to tell you the ultimate guide to Marvel. Alright, let's just get into the video. So, Marvel, in my opinion, is split up into four main categories. The Avengers, the Fantastic Four, X-Men, and street-level characters. Now, obviously, these are just teams, and there's a lot more characters in Marvel, but these categories are basically just what Marvel focuses on the most. And basically, in this video, I'm just going to talk about all four of them and how they fit into Marvel and how they can help you better understand Marvel. So without further ado, let's start with the Avengers because they're the most popular. Now, you've probably heard of the Avengers before since they're the most popular because of the MCU. But the MCU doesn't always understand what they mean, so we're gonna look into the comics to understand them more. So with that, who are the Avengers? What do they stand for or fight for? Well, the Avengers were originally created to fight battles that a single hero couldn't, like Thanos or Loki, and unlike in the MCU, S.H.I.E.L.D. actually didn't form them, it was actually themselves. But obviously, with every team comes heroes, so who's heroes that are most often in the Avengers? Now, this is tricky because in the MCU, there's thousands, but in the comics, it usually rounds up to these six. Hulk, who was a scientist named Bruce Banner that got exposed to gamma radiation and turned him into the man-killing monster, the Hulk. Thor, who's a character from Greek mythology that was from Asgard and he was born with the ability of lightning. Iron Man, who is a playboy genius named Tony Stark but eventually turned good and started making suits with his creativity to help save the world. And then next up is Ant-Man, who has a suit that can give him the ability to shrink and grow. And then there's Wasp, who can basically do the same thing but fly. And lastly, in some cases, there is Captain America, who is a young man named Steve Rogers that was given the super soldier serum in World War II to fight against an evil corporation called Hydra, which was led by Red Skull, but eventually he crashed in ice and was awoken in the early 2000s. Thank you. But anyways, now that you know who the Avengers are and what roster they usually have, what are some things you can do to better understand them? Like comic books you could read, TV shows you could watch, or even movies. Well, your boy made a list. Now, for comic books, I would read Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes by Joe Casey. This is basically just a modern retelling of the Avengers' origin. However, if you really want to see how they came to light in good detail, then I would read this. Next up, I have Avengers Under Siege. Now, this is a really good comic story if you want to see how leaderful the Avengers really are, especially with Captain America on the team. And then next up, I have Avengers Disassembled by Brian Bendis. Basically, in this comic storyline, it just shows you how they disassemble. Yeah, it's basically just in the name. And then lastly, I have the New Avengers. This is basically just the Avengers, but if they were more of a street level team. And if you don't know what street level means, don't worry, we'll get into it later. But yeah, next up we have movies you can watch. Honestly, you could probably just watch the entire MCU. And then lastly, we have TV shows. Now keep in mind, both of these are animated, so if you're not into that, you don't have to watch them, but like, they're really good, trust me. Now, for number one out of two TV shows, we got Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Honestly, I don't even have to say anything. This show is just so good. And then second, we have Avengers Assemble. Now, this show is kind of connected to the MCU, except it's not in that universe, trust me. But it has familiar voices and similar character designs. And yeah, that's the Avengers. But make sure you watch Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes, bro. It's fantastic. Wait, no, I didn't mean... Could someone say that again? Because it's time for the Fantastic Four. But anyway, who are the Fantastic Four? Basically, they were a group of rocket scientists that basically went up into space and then came back with powers. Now, what's our roster looking like? So the first person we have is Mr. Fantastic, aka Reed Richards. Basically, he has the ability to stretch his body in ways nobody else can. Next up, we have the Invisible Woman, aka Susan Storm. Now, Susan Storm's abilities are kind of complicated because sometimes they change depending on which variation you're talking about. But usually, she basically can go invisible and can create force fields and move whatever is inside that force field however she wants. And then next up is... That's right, it's the Thing. But here's the thing. The Thing's real name is Ben Grimm, and basically he has the ability of super strength and his whole body is rocks. And then lastly, we have Johnny Storm, aka my favorite Fantastic Four character, the Human Torch. Basically, he can put his whole body on fire, but like it doesn't hurt him, and he can use his fire powers to fight against evil. And yeah, that's mostly the Fantastic Four, but there's also Herbie. Man, Herbie is so bust. But anyways, now in my opinion, the Fantastic Four usually have great comics when it comes to like older comics, because they were actually the first group of heroes that Stan Lee made. But basically, some comics you can read to understand them very well are Fantastic Four #1 up to 100 by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. This is basically just where it all started. It gives you their origin, the kind of people they are. It basically just really helps you to understand them. And then next up, there is Fantastic Four Trial of Galactus by John Byron. Now, this is considered to be one of the greatest Fantastic Four comic storylines because of how good it shows the team, but also it might be good to read this because the Fantastic Four movie is coming up and clearly Galactus is in that. So if you really want to understand Galactus before watching that movie, then I would read this comic. And then lastly, I have Fantastic Four Forever by the legend John Hickman. This is basically just a massive run and it really helps you to understand the interconnectedness of Marvel. But anyways, let's move on to movies. Now, for #1, I have Fantastic Four because it's a great way to showcase their abilities and how they got them, and it also has a pretty good Doom, kind of. It's definitely the best live-action Doom we've ever got, though. And then lastly, we have... Alright guys, I'm sorry I forgot about the last movie. It's a Fan4Stick. It's my favorite... Wait, turn the sign around? Favorite movie of all time. Anyways, the first TV show I have is Fantastic Four, the animated series. Now, this series basically goes over everything the first Fantastic Four movie goes over, so if you want to watch that, but if you want to watch this, then watch this. And then lastly, I have Fantastic Four, World's Greatest Heroes. Now, this show is really good if you want to focus on the team's individual personalities, not just how they work together as a team. But basically, that's it for Fantastic Four. Now we have... Oh, I think the X gene is mutating inside of my blood. Wait, is that the... Now, who are the X-Men? So basically, the X-Men are a group of heroes that are mutants. You might be asking, what is a mutant? So basically, a mutant is someone that's born with the X gene, and the X gene activates their mutant abilities. For example, Cyclops. When his X gene was activated, he was given the ability to shoot lasers from his eyes, of course though, without control, until he got his visor. Another one is the famous Wolverine. Basically, when his X gene was activated, he was given the ability to heal from injuries very quickly and to have claws. See where I'm going with this? So yeah, that's how the X-Men get their powers. But who is their roster? Who are these people I'm talking about? Well, we already talked about Cyclops and Wolverine. So the next person is Storm, who is born with the natural ability to control storms and lightning. Next up is Jean Grey. Now, Jean Grey's abilities are kind of hard to explain, but basically she can just like take matter. But something really cool about her is she actually has an evil version called Dark Phoenix. Pretty sure she's the villain of an X-Men movie. And then lastly, you got ya boy,
Professor Xavier the Fifth.
That's right, the man that made the X-Men. Basically, his abilities are just the fact that he can mess with people's minds and read them. But anyways, what are some things that you can read and watch to understand the X-Men? Now, in my opinion, the X-Men media is often very good. So if you're looking for a team that's really good and has great characters and great action and great storylines, then pick the X-Men. But anyways, the first comic I would recommend is Giant Size X-Men 94 to 208. So this comic storyline basically just introduces the second generation of X-Men, which is like Wolverine, Colossus, Nightcrawler, and Storm. But that comic storyline isn't as uncanny as the Uncanny X-Men. Personally, my favorite storyline. It's basically just a great storyline to show you how the X-Men work as a team and how their individual personalities are. And then lastly, I have House of X / Powers of X by Jonathan Hickman. Or Power. I don't know if it's Powers or Power. This storyline basically just sets up the mutant kind civilization, Krakoa. But anyways, moving on to movies. Basically, I have X-Men, X-Men United, and X-Men Days of Future Past. X-Men is basically another origin for the X-Men. X-Men United is a continuation of that. And then X-Men Days of Future Past, I don't want to spoil it because it's really good and I want you to watch it, but keep in mind, it has time travel. Now, moving on to TV shows. I mean, before I get into absolute peak cinema, we gotta talk about the OG. X-Men, the animated series. I mean, need I say anything? This is such a bussin' show. It basically just created the main X-Men, and it's a great way to show their dynamic as a team and all the characters' personalities. Just chef's kiss. And then lastly, we have play the music. Yup, it's X-Men 97. I'm not gonna tell you anything about this show because it's so good that I want you to experience everything for yourself. But anyways, that just about rounds up the X-Men. So now, let's move on to the final category, street level characters.
Living on the edge, fighting crime, spinning webs, swinging from the highest ledge, he could leap above my head.
Now, when it comes to street level characters, keep in mind that there is hundreds, if not thousands of them. But basically, street level heroes are basically the people that stay on low ground. Now, not saying that they never do fight for the world, but you'll almost never see them in big battles like against Galactus or Doctor Doom. Now, in the MCU, that's a lot different because Spider-Man is one of the main characters.
You're Spider-Boy?
Spider-Man.
But anyways, like I said before, there's a lot of street level heroes. So let me just talk about the most popular. First off is Spider-Man. Need I say? Then we have Daredevil. So as a kid, Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, was injured and it made his eyes blind, but he had enhanced hearing senses. So if you think about it, he saw as he heard, if that makes sense. Another street level character that's actually very powerful is Moon Knight. Now, basically Moon Knight is a combination of people. So that would be you, your friend, and your dad became one thing. I don't really know how to explain. And then we got my boy, the Punisher. Basically, he was a retired Marine whose family was killed, and then he started, becoming a superhero to fight against crime. But he mainly targets the people that helped kill his family. And then last, but most definitely not least, we got Iron Fist. So Danny Rand, who is Iron Fist, was orphaned into the mystical city of Kunlun. And as he was growing up, he learned martial arts. Then he killed a dragon one day, which gave him his abilities. And yeah, that's pretty much the most popular street level heroes, but keep in mind, there's also more like Luke Cage or something. Now, per usual, here's some things that you can read or watch, not just to understand certain street level characters, but also street level characters in general. Now, for Spider-Man, I have The Night Gwen Stacy Died, which is Spider-Man number 121, I think, to 22. This storyline basically just gives a really good example of what the cost is of not just being a hero, but being a lesser known hero like street level. Because it really shows the sacrifice that Spider-Man has to do to be Spider-Man. But anyways, moving on for Daredevil's storyline, I have Lord. This storyline is really good because Daredevil's secret identity gets exposed to the public and it ruins his career, making him, broke. Again, showing sacrifices that street level heroes often have to make. The next comic storyline I have is called The Bottom. And this is a Moon Knight storyline. But it's actually very, very interesting because this storyline dives into the fact that Moon Knight actually has mental illness. And it shows that even though these heroes have crazy abilities, sometimes they can be relatable to not just people like us, but people that really need it. And then lastly, I have the immortal Iron Fist. This storyline is very good for understanding not just the character of Iron Fist, but also understanding how powerful street level characters can actually be. Because not only does he have crazy abilities in this storyline, but he also has to take up the mantle of the Iron Fist. So it really helps you to understand the weight that street level characters have. But anyways, that's it for comic books. Let's move on to movies. Now, for movies, I have three things. Number one is the Raimi Spider-Man universe. This universe is just very good for giving you a great origin to Spider-Man, and it basically just gives you the entire personality of Spider-Man and what he really represents, and why he represents it.
Busy taking pictures of your friend.
And then next up, I have Daredevil 2003. I haven't heard that this movie is great, but I heard it's really good for showing the origin of him and also how he does things. Like, Daredevil can be an absolute legend for civilians, but an absolute Batman for villains. And then lastly, I have The Punisher. Again, this movie basically just shows his origin, just like Daredevil's. Except this movie is actually a lot darker than like Spider-Man or Daredevil, so if you don't want to watch a dark movie, then don't watch it. But if you do, then watch it. And then lastly, we have TV shows. So for number 1, I have Spider-Man the Animated Series. And I mean, need I say anything? This TV show is basically what gave us the example of what Spider-Man really means and what he represents. And also, this Spider-Man experiences a lot. He experiences loss, he experiences anxiety, but in the end, he overcomes it like the true Spider-Man he is. And then the last one I have is Daredevil. Now, I personally haven't watched it, so I can't tell you my opinion on it, but I heard it's decent, so if you're a big Daredevil fan, then go right ahead. So I think that wraps it up. Now, this video doesn't 100% give you like all the information you need to like 100% know the MCU or Marvel, but this is just a video to get you started. But in the end, Marvel is a franchise with movies, comic books, TV shows that all of us can love. Because the heroes are amazing, the villains are amazing, and all the storylines are bossin'. If you want to get started learning about Marvel, I recommend you should. And also, if you need to look back at all this information and you don't want to watch the video again, I put all this information down in the description, along with some extra stuff. So if you're starting your Marvel journey now, I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that you enjoyed this video. So without further ado, here is my outro. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Hope you have a nice day or night. Jesus is king, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Also, let me know if you want me to do a DC version of this video. This was really fun. But anyways, thank you for watching, and it is good to be back.